I picked up this book yesterday on its release day. I got this book because I kind of thought it was going to be a dumpster fire, I'm not going to lie. This Boone guy that she has a crush on, the description on him cracked me up too. Well over 6 feet of muscle, brute strength, and a with me and find out heir to thanks to, again, the muscles and the recent addition of a scruffy brown beard, a shade darker than his hair. Then there's the way he dresses like a biker. Lots of jeans and leather. The vibes he gives up aren't a lie either. He can handle himself. To look at him, you'd think he'd be a total 24/7. Many of the master of thieves, like Chance, are. It's a defense mechanism, survival tactic, but not food. It's the way he is with the apprentices, a patient guy that I like the most. Okay, so he's like a bad boy, but he's got a sweet, sensitive side.
Hello, everybody. It's so nice to see you all again. That intro song went like way harder than what this entire story is like. I'm sorry. As you can tell, I am extremely congested. Isn't it just lovely? Seasonal allergies, am I right? I feel like I look so tired, so hopefully it doesn't come off that way, but I apologize, my voice is in a register it normally is not, so hopefully I can last for this. This lovely darling that's joined me today, this is Butter, aka Butterball, Butterbuns. Smooth like water. She's just hilarious. She's kind of like in her own world though. There's always some music going on in there that only she can hear and she's jamming out to. That is Butter. She does what she wants when she wants. We love her for that. She is another one of my original Satin Silky girls. She's 3 years old and she's got a lovely poof. But yeah, she's gonna hang out with us today while we talk about this book. Let's get into that. Today we're talking about the games gods play. What's the best way to describe this book? This is the Hunger Games meets Greek mythology, but it's not that intense. The Hunger Games came out when I was a kid. I think I was like 13, 14 years old, so it's been out for a while. I picked this book up because originally it sounded like kind of a cool concept. It sounded fun. It had, you know, the Greek mythology elements to it, so I'm like, sure, why not? Let's go get it. So I drove my booty down to the local Barnes & Noble and I picked this baby up the day it launched. And I was expecting better. I really was. This is the worst read for me of 2024 so far. I think I gave it 1 star. I freaking hated this book. Oh, and I'll get into all the reasons. As you can see, I have a lot of tabs in there. It's because I had to mark down the amount of horrible quotes and writing that are in this book. The concept itself, I thought was cool. It just was not executed well. Butter, girlfriend, where are you going? You checking things out? Design-wise, actually one of the reasons why I wanted to pick this book up, because design-wise, I really liked the design. I don't know why I stumbled so badly on that. I liked the end page, you know, this stuff here. I thought that looked cool. I'm sorry, I used the wrong word there. This is the end page. I thought this was cool. I thought it was pretty. I liked the colors. But hang on. Let me take this dust jacket off here for just a hot second, okay? Let's take this off. I'm just gonna fling that over there. This, very pretty, right? Very pretty. This is our main character here, Lyra? How the heck do you say it? I'll probably look this up. It's Irish?
How do you go about pronouncing this one? No, it is not Lyra, but rather Lyra.
Okay.
Lyra. Pretty straightforward once you know. Lyra.
Okay, Lyra. I think I say it both ways, honestly. Why is Lyra dressed like the most boring, basic individual? She's wearing like hiking boot type things. Hades just is wearing like a gray button-up shirt with tight black pants. I don't know. That took me out. I know this is nitpicky, but like Lyra looks boring AF. But much like you'll find out in the rest of it. That's what this whole book is. It set the parameters right there with the end papers. Probably one of my pet peeves with a lot of these like modern day books or like modern retellings of different stories and whatnot is like the swearing and the language that's used in the book. Listen, I'm not against like swear words in writing. I'm not saying anything about that. but like the way it's so excessive, like Fourth Wing, so excessive with the use of the F word. It's not even used appropriately. Like, use it appropriately when it's needed, but like don't just like throw it in there here and there, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. It's a pet peeve of mine. This book uses it not quite as heavily as what Fourth Wing does, but like, just so you know, like there's language in this and it just kind of dumbs it down, I think, too much for me. I read this book and then immediately after I finished this one, I picked up the book Compound Fracture. This is my first time ever reading anything by Andrew Joseph White. Honestly, pick this book up because that is some stinking cool cover art there. Immediately grabbed my attention. I think I read this in 2 days and it was chilling and wow. This is a YA book, okay? YA. Adult. This is a story that will stay with me my entire freaking life. Main character is 16 years old. I felt like I related more to this 16-year-old than this 23-year-old idiot. Also, this book, it's very gritty, it's very dark, it's got really, really, really heavy stuff in it, and there's heavy language involved. It's used appropriately. You're like, yep, that makes sense to say that at that point. This book is just like, I say the F word because I'm edgy. I'm gonna give a basic gist for what this book is. It's not complicated. You got humans and you got the gods. It takes place in San Francisco. We did establish it's modern day, so I wasn't as mad about some of the more like pop culture type references that were made or some of the language because I'm like, all right, well, at least we established it's modern day. Apparently, the gods put this game on every 100 years because there was a war that happened centuries ago where the gods all fought each other. They were fighting each other because one of them ultimately wanted to become king of the gods, king or queen of the gods. So they had this big war and it wiped out everything. So they decided, you know what, instead of having a giant war every century, let's do a fun game where we get a bunch of humans against their will and we make them play in the Hunger Games for us. And then whichever human champion wins, then the god that they represent is the one that becomes the king or queen of the gods. Our main character is Lyra. She is 23 years old. She is a thief. Butter. You cannot be walking all over my desk. Remember how I said that Butter does what she wants when she wants? She's doing it right now. So yeah, we have Lyra. She's 23 years old. She's a thief. She lives with a group of miscreants called the Order. And apparently, sad, sad day for Lyra, she was given up to the Order as like an infant, basically. And basically how this works in this realm, I guess, is if you have like a debt. Oh wait, I'm sorry, Butter, I forgot about your mealworms. That's why you're over here. Clever girl she is. Come here, Butterball. And she's gonna make a mess too, probably. But so how the Order works basically is if you have a debt to pay off, you can basically sign your life away to the Order and then work your debt off by stealing. That's how that works. Felix is the leader of the Order. Don't worry about him. He literally never makes an on-page appearance. I don't know why we even bothered learning his name, to be honest. Then we have this dude named Chance. He's like an older thief or whatever, and he's like super mean to Lyra. Is it Lyra? Am I saying it wrong again?
No, it is not Lyra, but rather Lyra.
Lyra. Lyra. She lies. She's a lie. She lies. She's a thief. Lyra. Lyra! So yeah, there's this other older thief named Chance. He has this thing out for Lyra. He like is super nasty and mean to her. Don't worry, he like has an on-page appearance like right in the first 2 seconds of this book and he never comes into play again. Then we hear about a character named Boone Runner. I'm guessing how you say his last name. Boone Runner. He is a master thief in the Order, so he's like head honcho, big guy on the block. Lyra has a massive crush on him, and apparently he's pretty darn attractive. As that, I read the description for what Lyra thinks of Boone in the beginning there. So he's like 6'3", super muscular, you know, pretty much textbook. Lyra has this huge crush on Boone, but here's the thing about Lyra. Apparently she's got this curse. She was cursed by Zeus as an infant to be unlovable. She firmly believes that the reason why like he doesn't like her or have much of a relationship with her is because she's unlovable. So in the opening couple chapters, Lyra is out on the town. Apparently she is monitoring the other thieves like to make sure nobody gets like killed or hurt or whatever. Lyra doesn't make sense to me. So like she's been part of the Order. She's a thief, but she didn't technically graduate to become like a master thief. So like she's used as a clerk, but I don't really quite understand like what a clerk does in this order. It sounds to me like she's almost like a secretary in a way. Which I'm like, okay, it's kind of boring. It's boring. It's boring. Oh, it made me mad. I'm like, why are we talking about all this if like none of it really even matters? She's out monitoring like the younger kids, making sure nobody gets into trouble. So that character I mentioned, Chance, he's like, he made some like really hurtful comments about Lyra, basically that like Boone would basically, he knows that she has a huge crush on Boone, so he sits there and says that like he would sleep with her out of pity probably, because just to like make Lyra feel better about herself, I guess. So Lyra's pretty ticked off. Lyra's ticked off. She's like, that's it. This is the breaking point for me. I've had it. I'm mad. I hate Zeus. I hate the gods. I hate that I don't have my family. I hate that nobody loves me. I hate all this stuff. So she's reached her breaking point. She's like, I'm going to go do something about it. So as I mentioned, the crucible is occurring right now. So apparently like a bunch of the human people, all the mortals like get together and they watch like live stream coverage of the opening ceremonies for the crucible. So they're like Lyra's out amongst all these townspeople with a bunch of the thieves, and the thieves are going around like stealing off of people. So that's kind of what's happening here in the beginning. So Lyra, she gets ticked off and she's like, I'm gonna go do something about this. She's like, I'm gonna go up to Zeus's temple. I'm gonna throw a rock at it. And I'm like, smart girl. Yeah, like that'll show him. She's about to throw this rock at one of the columns on the temple, and somebody stops her because of course. Oh my gosh. Here's like, okay, this is literally like 13 pages into this book. A gaping hole of silence greets my bitterness. My interfering do-gooder drops his arm and takes a step back, probably worried curses are contagious. I immediately miss his warmth and shove my hands in my pockets. She hasn't seen this guy's face yet, all right? She hasn't even seen who she's talking to right now. And she immediately misses the warmth of him. Okay, listen. I guess the argument here is that Lyra is so touch-starved. She's so isolated from human contact that like the slightest bit of human contact for her is like a huge deal, right? I get that, but it just doesn't. Like, you don't know who this is that's touching you and like stopped you from doing something probably kind of dumb. It comes off as like, oh, it's so sensual, and I'm just like, calm down. You want to know what I love the most out of all these types of books is the super self-aware descriptions that the characters have for themselves, right? I know what he sees. A slip of a woman with short raven hair, a smallish face, pointed chin, and cat-like eyes. My one vanity. They are deep green with a darker outer ring and gold at the center, fringed by long black lashes. Maybe if I bat them at him, except beguiling is not in my list of skills, so I nixed that thought. Oh my gosh, so he's like checking her out, and then she gives you a description of what she thinks she looks like, and I'm just like, nobody sits there and is like, this is what my eyelashes look like, this is what blah, 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 blah. Right? Better. This mysterious guy says, do you know who I am? He finally asks. His deep voice would be smooth except for the harsh growl at the bottom of it, like a silky, still lake, broken by ripples from something under the surface. All right. Is he serious about that question, though? Everyone knows who he is. Should I? Holy hell, stop popping off, Lyra. The god's eyes narrow slightly at my flippant response, face assuming a hard cast. He takes 2 slow, long strides directly into my space. Do you know who I am? Everything inside me shrivels like my body already knows I'm dead anyway, and it's just getting a head start. Fear has a taste I'm more than familiar with, metallic in the mouth, like blood. Or maybe I just bit my tongue. The gods have punished mortals for much less than what I've done and said so far tonight. My entire body quivers. Merciful gods! Hades, I swallow. You are Hades, the god of death and the king of the underworld himself, and he does not look happy. Every time, I'm so ruined. Every time I read any bit of book where they're like, say my name, say who I am, say it. I'm like, vampire!
Are you afraid?
Anyway, so I feel like I really briefly went through that, but yeah, she meets Hades. He's stopping her. Why is he at Zeus's temple? I don't know. So Lyra sits there and asks him like if he's going to be competing in the Crucible, and I can't remember if he flat out admits that he is or not. So apparently here's how it works. Hades has decided that he's going to compete in the Crucible for the first time ever in his time of existence. And this is a big deal because everyone's like, what the heck? Why is Hades here? Like, why is he participating? And so nobody knows why he all of a sudden out of nowhere wants to compete, but it puts all the gods on edge because they're like, what does he want with being the king of the gods?
So this is an audience or a mosaic?
He's never actually competed before, and he meets Lyra. So I guess you can see where this is going, right? Then we get this lovely, lovely description of Hades. It's his clothes. He's wearing worn boots and jeans for Elysium's sake. The jeans sit low on his narrow hips and are paired with a sky blue button-down shirt rolled up at the sleeves to reveal forearms a deeper tan than I would expect from someone who lives in the underworld. Who knew forearms could be sexy? Over the shirt, he wears vintage leather suspenders that I suspect meet in the back at the top of his shoulder blades, side holster style. The metal rings on the suspenders look like they have a purpose that he's not using them for right now. Are they for weapons, or does he have a bad back? By the way, like, this whole he has suspenders on thing, that never comes into play. He never carries a weapon. He never, like, just... She's sitting there, like, freaking out, like, should I trust this guy? Like, no, he's a god. He's the god of the underworld, too. Like, don't just trust random dudes that you meet out in the dark. Like, come on. He must see the wariness in my eyes because a muscle tightens in his jaw like he's irritated. I would doubt his word. Relax, my star. I hesitate at the endearment. It clearly means nothing to him. He gives her a nickname right off the bat, which I mean, it was like, wrong. Don't do that. He calls her my star. You want to know why? Because there was another super cringy self-aware description of the fact that she has a tattoo on her wrist of like Orion's belt or something. And so, yeah, he notices that and then starts calling her my star. Yeah, we get this like big description of her tattoo and then it never comes into play at all. I follow his gaze to my black fitted shirt paired with jeans, so it's not all black. One sleeve has ridden up slightly to expose the pale skin of my wrist where the black ink tattoo peeks out. 2 stars. A third star is on my other wrist, and when I put them together, they form Orion's belt. So right out of the starting gate, she tells Hades that she's got this curse put on her, which I'm like, wow, that was fast for you to just reveal that information to Hades. 23 years ago, when I was still in my mother's womb, she and my father came here to make an offering and pray for blessings on the birth. Her water broke, and your brother apparently took offense at her defiling his sacred sanctuary. As punishment, he cursed her baby, me, as it happens, that no one would ever love me. There, end of story. His gaze turns colder, so calculating that I take a step back. He made you unlovable? He asked, as though he isn't quite sure he believes me. I give a jerking nod. The curse is why my parents gave me up. They said it was the debt, but I know otherwise. It landed me in the Order of Thieves at 3 years old. It's why I have no ride or die friends. It's why Boone, ... Up until tonight, I tried to convince myself that things could have been worse. I mean, I could have ended up as Kraken fodder, or with snakes for hair and stone statues as my friends, but it led me to this moment, facing a different god, a worse god. One who obviously finds my curse interesting. Why? Because Zeus gave it to me? The current king of the gods is a dick. That's one thing Hades also agrees with me on. The question is, what is he going to do with me now? Hades waves a hand at me, the action almost languid. You may go. I may... Wait, what? So Hades lets her go, and so she just waltzes back into the crowd. And she's trying to get back to the Order's, basically their compound or whatever, to grab some stuff. Because she's like, I'm going to leave. I'm going to leave and go avenge myself or something. So she's going to leave. But again, like, there's not, like, there wasn't good... everything happened so fast in these first opening chapters. Because mind you, like, we meet Hades on, like, page 13 of this. And I'm just like, okay. So... she's like running off to go do something, and as she's on her way back to the compound, she runs into Boone, and Boone's like, hey girl, I'm gonna walk with you just so that way you stay safe. And I'm like, well, there's a nice thing. That's a nice thing for a young man to do, just to keep her safe and whatnot. So he walks back with her to the compound. Lyra cannot believe that he's paying attention to her. I gesture back toward the temple. Felix won't like both of us missing this. The upper boss has said we all had to be present to honor Hermes. He turns serious. Chance isn't easy to hide from for long. I'll walk you back. I should have known he'd figured it out. Don't you want to watch? That cocky grin gets me every time. He holds up a cell phone. Got that covered. The view from where we were sucked anyway. Sticking to me like a burr, Boone keeps one eye on me and one on the phone, reporting the god selections as we make our way through the near-empty cities. Because they're the Order of Thieves, I guess their god of choice is Hermes. This whole event's being live streamed, so they're supposed to, like, stand by and watch all this live coverage, I guess. So Lyra and Boone, they get back to the den, and Lyra's trying to, basically, she's not going to tell Boone that she's trying to, like, bounce. Which, by the way, here's another weird part to this story. When you pay off your debt in the Order, you're allowed to just leave. Like, you don't have to stay. But for some reason, Lyra has paid off her debt, like, tenfold. Like, she's just living there to live there because she doesn't have any family. So, like, she could just leave whenever she wanted to, but the book makes it seem like she can't leave because of why? I don't know. I don't know. It's not explored. It's not really fleshed out. It's just she could leave. She just chooses not to. And now she's going to, but she's got to keep it a secret because now people have a problem if she leaves right now. So they're sitting there talking. Her and Boone are sitting there talking and watching the live coverage of the feed. And then as Hades comes on the screen or whatever, and they're like, oh my gosh, Hades, what? He's competing this year? What? Like, so mind blown. So as they're about to reveal his champion, guess what happens? You'll never guess what happens. Lyra's standing there, and all of a sudden this like smoke starts coming up around her feet, and she's like, what the heck's happening? And Boone's like, what's that? What's going on? She gets poofed away into the nothingness, and then she's wakes back up, or she blinks again, and all of a sudden she's in this like Coliseum type setting where she's got probably cameras galore all around her, and she's like, oh no, I'm like in the Crucible.
What?
Butter, what are you doing? Here she is, doing whatever she wants, because she's a princess, right, Butterball? That whole introductory thing, it was very hodgepodge sounding, right? Because it was. Hades and Lyra talk, and Hades tells her, like, we got to put on a united front if we want to win this thing. So in some ways, it's almost like he's implying, like, let's imply that we're, like, romantically involved, and that'll help us win this. And I'm like, I don't really know how that helps or how that makes you win. You just have to be better than everybody else. You have to win everything in order to, like, you know what I'm saying here? Like, what? Then he tells her, like, hey, girl, if you win this Crucible, I will remove your curse. And so she's like, darn tootin', let's go. Okay, I can be motivated to win this thing. So if you do win the Crucible, the award is like 100 years of immortality for like you and your family. And basically like you live on Olympus, and it's like an all-paid resort. And I'm like, that sounds cool, I guess. But what happens if you lose, you ask? Well, you either die, you're punished, or something else. So they describe the Crucible as it's not usually like a fight to the death. So it's not like a gladiator type situation, but like people do die. And it's like, some of you will die, but that is a sacrifice I'm willing to make. That's basically kind of how Zeus is in all of this. The champions, so the mortals that are playing in God's place, they are referred to as the champions. They're allowed to use like any mortal weapon or tool, and also they win like prizes with each crucible, or with each labor. Each phase or level of the Crucible is called a labor. And so the prizes that they win for winning a labor, they can use those also throughout the rest of the labors that they go through. In theory, you're like, okay, cool, we'll see some like neat stuff. It's so boring. So they jump into their first labor, which I don't really know if this one counts technically as a labor, but they're in this threshold or this room with like a table, and it's got all these different relics, tokens, items, and stuff on it. So yeah, they have to like find their token, their god's token or whatever, and then the one that they find is like, that's like the one that they can use going into the games and stuff like that. So it helps give them like a little bit of an advantage. So this is like the only labor that all of them technically win because they each get something. Lyra, because she's such a good person, she decides to like help the other champions find their tokens. So she's like finding their tokens and giving them to them, but she hasn't been able to find hers yet. And she's already starting to notice that the other champions think she's like, they're really off put by her because she's Hades champion, and so like everybody's kind of afraid of her. As it progresses, Lyra's the only one that has to basically go off site to find her token. It's weird. She's got to run up this like hallway thing, and she has to run past these illusions of monsters and creatures. She has to like run past them, and then she ends up finding her token like right at the last second. One of the things I actually liked about this book that I thought was fun was Hades can also basically give Lyra a token of some sort that she can use in the games, and he has to do it now before the games like officially start, because if he were to try and give it to her later, then he's technically like interfering. He takes these like tattoos that are on him, and he like holds them up, and they transfer over onto Lyra, and then Lyra can use those as tools to help her get through the games. And I actually, that's probably one of the things that I liked about this book was the tattoo creatures. They're cool. I don't think the author utilized them enough. Because I think maybe like for me, I'm like, that was like one of the coolest things of this book, and I feel like it just got kind of glossed over to a degree. Since Hades gives her those things, those tools for her to use in the games, he has one other thing he's got to give her. And he has to basically give her this seal that once he gives it to her, she can then enter the underworld without any issues. It's basically her passport to get into the underworld. So how does one acquire this seal? I'm going to give you 2 seconds. Does he give her a literal ID card that she can use to get into the underworld, or does he give her a kiss? Which option do you think is how she acquires this seal? You would be correct if you said kiss. I've never been kissed. I shouldn't want it, should I? Or is this just curiosity? He stepped into me, forcing me to tip my head up. The kiss will mark you as mine. No, definitely no. Horrifyingly no. A very hard no. I am not getting fluttery over any god or goddess, but especially not this one. This mark will give you safe passage through the underworld so that you may return to the overworld and not get trapped down there. Hades takes one more step and his unique bitter chocolate scent wraps around me. Oh, by the way, he smells like chocolate.
Did you say chocolate? Chocolate!
His breath is warm against my flesh before I realize what he's doing, and I make a tiny sound in my throat. Immediately, he freezes, gaze lifting to meet mine, though he doesn't move away. Problem? Can you just kiss my forehead or cheek? Gods, I sound like a petrified virgin, which I am, but no need to sound like it. After a second, he slowly shakes his head. It doesn't work that way. Do you want a different gift? No, this is a gift no one should knock back. Decision made. I close my eyes and tilt my face toward his like a sunflower following Apollo. Go ahead. His lips gently part mine, shaping, teasing, becoming more demanding, but I don't pull away. I'm too caught up into everything of it. My head spins, and I don't know which way is up, down, or sideways. I open under his mouth and lean into him, and he doesn't hesitate, the kiss taking on a heat and a life of its own as he plunders and owns and takes even as he gives. And I don't want to stop, because the god of death's kisses are delicious. Ugh. A craving stirs for more as his chocolate scent swirls around me, blending with the taste of him. He makes a sound deep in his throat. Then his kisses change again, turning hungry and hot and menacing, like the predator I know he is. But it's too late for me. Too late in so many ways. I'm lost in my response to him, matching him kiss for kiss in a heat and heady, intoxicating peril. Exposed and undeniably vulnerable, yet powerful in my own right because he groans. Hades groans. I'm dying. With no other warning, his power releases through that touch. It snaps through me in a wildfire of sensation, searing every single tiny nerve, every inch, spreading onward from my lips. His magic consumes me like a blaze as it sinks into and under my skin to lie there and wait like his tattoos, marking me as his. All right, that was a lot of dialogue, but I have some complaints. First of all, Hades is immediately at the starting gate doing the whole possessive "you're mine" thing, marking me. I'm being marked as his, you're mine. I hate it. It's unearned. It's unnecessary. This is supposed to be almost like a platonic type professional situation, and he's immediately turning it into like a sexually charged thing. I don't understand why the seal needed to be done with a kiss. I get that for the sake of the story, it's probably more interesting if it is a kiss because I understand this is a romantasy and that's what people want. It's too on the nose and I think it's dumb and it's lazy writing. The thing that I found kind of disturbing with this and why I started getting kind of like the ick with reading this is that the power doesn't release until he's like making out with her. And I'm like, this just feels weird to me. During the entirety of the Crucible, the champion lives with the patron god. Lyra will have to be living with Hades, which I'm like, cool, I guess you can see where this is going. Hades asks Lyra more about her curse, and she, again, explains that it makes her unlovable. So basically it makes it so that people don't really care if she lives or dies. And it's like they're sitting there discussing this, and she's like, if that's a problem, you could just send me back to the mortal realm. Like, it's no big deal. And then Hades is like, I can't do that now. Like, it's literally in a contract that you can't leave. Like, you're permanently stuck here. And again, I have a problem with this because, like, so she's stuck here against her will. She's being told that she's somebody else's possession against her will. I don't care if he's a god. I don't care how attractive he is. I don't like it. And then he tells her, like, even if I could send you back, it wouldn't matter anyway because, like, you're literally the only person that I could call upon. I guess later on that night, I don't know, a day goes by or whatever, Lyra's living in this penthouse with Hades, and Boone shows up. He sneaks into her room and he brings her relic and some like of her thieves' tools, and it's pretty sweet actually. Next he pulls out a tactical vest. I didn't know what you'd be doing. I brought anything I could think of, he shrugs. I figured you could at least wear this even under your clothes if you had to, and stash a weapon or two in it for self-defense. My eyes sting and I blink rapidly as I tentatively take it from his grasp. Okay. I've already prepped it with some things. I raise my eyebrows at him, then start rummaging through the zippered pockets and pouches to find common tools to our trade are tucked neatly away. Wire twine, wire cutters, bolt cutters, a small screwdriver with several interchangeable heads, and even a small torch for cutting metal. Okay, that seems like that's a lot to just casually have in this vest. I get to the last pocket, a deep vinyl-lined one on the back, but this time I drop what I pull out to the bed on a gasp. I pull out to the bed on a gasp. That was a weirdly written sentence. But this time I drop what I pull out to the bed on a gasp. I stare at the gleaming gold and silver weapon lying there. My relic. All right, so basically what happens is here she says, every pledge who graduates to Master Thief magically receives a relic. We believe the gifts are from Hermes for use in our trade. It is the only significant value that we never have to steal or surrender to pad the order's pockets. However, as a clerk, I didn't technically graduate. There was no ceremony. No relic should have come to me. But this axe showed up on my bed one day. So then Boone gives Lyra his relic, which I was like, ah, that's kind of sweet of him. And his relic is dragon teeth. And then there's these. He holds out a drawstring leather pouch that rattles a little, something inside clacking. Curiosity always was a failing of mine, but when I don't immediately reach for it, he bounces it on his palm. Come on, Lyra Luhu. You know you want it. I pluck it from his grasp, then pour what's inside into my hand and stare. Teeth? I look at Boone. Gross? My relic, he says, as if that's not a big deal. I almost drop them right there, and they clatter in my hand a bit. Hell's Boone, you can't give these to me. They're my relic. I can do what I want with them, he shrugs. They haven't been useful to me as a thief anyway, so I still don't want to take them. What are they? Dragon teeth. They're so impressive. Small. I glance up to find his shoulders silently shaking. They've been enchanted to be carried more easily, but they still work just fine.
I'm travel size for your convenience.
You plant them in the ground, any ground, and within minutes, they grow into bone soldiers that cannot be killed, and who will obey your commands. Use them wisely. I'm going to start my defense of Boone now. This man has shown far more respect to Lyra than Hades has. Hands down. This is supposedly a man that can't love her because of her curse, but I'm telling you right now, these kind of actions that he's taking are a better display of love because he finds her, he gives her gear that he knows she's going to be able to use. Here's another thing too. So he calls her Lyra Luhu, and I'm like, that's actually cute to me. That's cute. Boone and Lyra have known each other. I think he joined the order when he was like 13 and she was like 11 or something like that. And so like they've known each other a long time. He's got a little pet name for her. It's cute because it's a pretty I was like, yeah, that's a nickname that you come up with something. Some of these nicknames the main characters give each other are the dumbest names I've ever heard. I was like, nobody freaking says that, okay? But Lyra Luhu, yep, that's definitely a real one. So yes, he gives her all this equipment, tells her basically, be careful, stay alive. And then he leaves because he's like, I don't want to stay too long in case Hades figures out that I'm here. Hades is sitting there in the kitchen that day making eggs or something for breakfast, and then he just starts checking out Lyra, and he thinks to himself that she's like super cute. While they're sitting there in the kitchen, she mentions that she's like bruised all over her rib cage because from the day before when she had to go off campus to get her relic or her token or whatever. How this works is like you're allowed to be healed. Since like the first labor that they did where they had to find the token, since that wasn't like a technical labor, Asclepius can interfere and heal the champions. So how it works is if you win a crucible, you're allowed to be healed by Asclepius, but if you don't win the crucible, then you don't get any healing. So basically, if you break all your ribs, you're going into the next labor with broken ribs, I guess. And that's just, well, figure it out, I guess. Hades is all like, oh my gosh, she's wounded. We can't have this. And so he calls for Asclepius and he comes and fixes all of her bruises. After she's been healed, Hades casually mentions that he's like, who was that mysterious man that was in the house last night? So yeah, he's like sitting there like pestering her about if she has a crush on Boone, which I'm like, I think it's pretty obvious that she does have a crush on him. Why is he being a jerk and like bringing it up and being like weird about it? Now the labors are going to officially start. I'm going to read you off what these labors are, and because I really don't feel like rehashing it every single time. So the first labor is Poseidon's labor. This one tests courage. They're out in the ocean tied to these posts. They have to get off the posts, and then they have to fight off these weird like seahorse type demon creature things that hatch out of these eggs. Apparently they hatch like as soon as the water recedes from the tide. Hermes' labor is second. That one, they're on a mountainside in these glass containers and they have to solve a riddle. And so they can only ask like yes or no questions, and the fates show up, and the fates are who they have to ask the questions to. Each time somebody answers a question wrong, this little board plank thing that they're standing on like moves back. And so if it moves back all the way, they fall into their death. Dionysus labor, that one's third. They're put into this thing called the Lost Cave, and they have to transport a pallet of alcohol through this cave and deliver it. And the catch is that like the whole cave is all filled with like poison ivy on steroids. So like if you touch this, it gives you like horrible, nasty burns, and like it starts like eating away at your skin. It's really bad. Spoiler alert, the alcohol that they're carrying, that would heal their skin. Whoever is able to get the most amount of alcohol across the cave, that's who wins the crucible. Apollo's labor is they have 2 minutes to figure out how to open up this door. And there's like, it's like this room and it has like different items and stuff in it. You gotta figure out how to open the door up, and they can try as many times as they want. And then right after Apollo's, then there's Artemis's labor. They go hand in hand since the two are twins. So this is basically like capture the flag or flag football. No, it's flag football. So they're wearing, yeah, no, it's both. It's okay. They're wearing like these belts and they have 4 flags on them. The 4 flags represent strength, mind, heart, and courage. These are like the 4 virtues or whatever, I guess, that each labor is supposed to represent. So the flags represent that. Each time a flag is like stripped from you, you experience like a physical effect from that. So like if courage is stripped away, you're instantly filled with fear, and it can like affect your performance and make it so that way you don't finish or whatever because you're so affected by that. I actually think Artemis's labor was probably the more interesting one. The flag thing was kind of weird to me, but I was like, oh, I mean, it's kind of cool, I guess. Like hers actually made a little more sense to me, except for it got kind of weird because they have to run from these like metallic birds, and then also the grass that they're running through is like metal, so it's like sharp and it's like cutting them. It was kind of cool. Then next is Aphrodite's labor. It starts off kind of kinky. They wake up and they're like all chained to a bed with like pink fluffy handcuffs, and I'm like, okay. I understand that Aphrodite is like the goddess of love and whatnot, but it was just a little bit weird. So they're like put to sleep by Hypnos, and then they wake up in this dream realm, and they have to go find their loved one in the dream world. Then they have to be able to wake up their loved one from the dream, and then if they successfully do that and they get back to wherever they are, then like they win, I guess. It's a timed thing, you know, like whoever gets back first wins. If you get your loved one back safely, they can compete with you in the next labor. After that, we have Hephaestus's labor. They're dropped off in the woods and they have to go to this tower. And then inside of this tower is like 9 levels of hell, where like you've got to fight off different levels of automatons that are like bloodthirsty and out to kill you. I guess this one, like whoever competes the course with the fastest time wins, and then whoever doesn't finish is just dies, I guess. And then they have Demeter's labor. That one is the Fields of Forgetting. Hera's labor, she puts a new star in the sky, and the champions have to figure out which star is the new star. Meanwhile, they're being tormented by, who was it? Released by Deimos and Phobos. Then they have Ares' labor. Each champion was given a baby chimera, and then they have to get it back to the nest without being mauled by the baby chimera. Then you have Athena's labor. Hers was in a Roman Colosseum, very textbook, I guess. They have to get like through multiple levels of a maze, and there's like different things, different creatures, I guess, that pop up and cause issues. So it's an obstacle course, okay? They have to get through an obstacle course maze situation. The last one is Zeus's labor. It's in Death Valley, which I thought was a bit too on the nose. It's in Death Valley. There's like 3 gates that they have to get through. And the first gate, they have to fight a Minotaur. The second gate, they have to fight a Kraken. And apparently the Kraken is a female because she has breasts. That's noted. And I'm like, okay, I don't care. And then the third door they get through, they have to fight off sirens, which aren't like sirens, like mermaid sirens. They're like sirens. So Lyra makes it through Poseidon's labor. It's boring, I'm not gonna lie. One of the champions ends up dying, and it's like really upsetting to Lyra. She holds the girl's hand as she dies, but it's like, okay, well, we knew people were gonna die. This is supposed to be like the Hunger Games. One of my pet peeves with this book was the descriptions of the gods. They were like too on the nose and too obvious. Like they just sounded really juvenile. He is clearly in his element, no longer wearing armor, but shirtless, showing off his sable skin and impressive physique, and also not hiding anything with skin-tight pants that look like metallic blue fish scales that shimmer in the water. He has tattoos over his chest and arms and what I'm pretty sure are gills at the sides of his ribs. And his dark blue hair, when wet, turns black, matching his trimmed beard. So she's decided, like, I gotta form some alliances here. I gotta find someone that will work with me so we can work as a team, so hopefully I can win this thing. She decides after they get back from Poseidon's labor, she's gonna go out and try to meet up with some people to have conversations about becoming allies. I guess, like, the champions aren't supposed to go out on their own because if the gods find them, the gods get mad and they'll, like, kill them. It makes sense, like, why the gods would kill one of the mortal champions, because they want to become the king of the gods, but I don't know, it just seemed goofy. Lyra goes out and meets up with Zay Aridum, I think is how you say it, but I'm just gonna call him Zay. Zay's father was like the previous winner of the Crucible, so they've lived, you know, they've been immortal and been living on Olympus for 100 years. Zay was then chosen to be the next champion. So Lyra goes up to this temple that he's at and she hides when she hears his dad coming. And his dad, like, yells at him and tells him he's horrible because apparently Zay has, like, horrible allergies and it impacts his ability to perform. And I was like, can't relate there. Me who can't breathe out of my nose right now. They're talking about becoming allies and then Poseidon shows up at the temple and he's, like, ticked off at Lyra and he's, like, trying to kill her. He's like, I have to kill you because Hades can't win this. Like, if he wins this, we're all doomed. So then conveniently Hades shows up and he's like, no. She is mine and I protect what's mine. He expertly flips the knife blade angled down on Poseidon's thigh and raises his hand in the air. Don't! My voice is soft, but Hades stops immediately, his gaze cutting to mine. Not for me, I add. The god of death narrows his eyes in a way that makes a now sweating Poseidon lean away, even though Hades is looking at me. Not for you? He asked me silkily, his voice like sandpaper on fire. By now. That's a weird description. Fine for me then, because you are mine, and he dared to threaten you, let alone make you bleed. That word again, that possessive word. I should protest. I should push back, lash out against it, because I don't belong to anyone, not even the order. What I shouldn't do is react with something darkly sensuous that slides through my body, waking me up from the inside in glorious gut-clenching, heat-pooling folly. And I definitely shouldn't like it. I do. I like it. A lot. Butter, you were on my computer. Do you want to sit? Oh, hang on. Do you want to sit with me? Want to cuddle with me? Oh, baby girl. I read this and was like, oh my gosh. When, yeah, that possessive word, I should protest, I should push back, I should lash out against it. Yes, you should. You aren't Hades. You aren't his. He barely knows you. You don't know him. He's a god. You're mortal. I do not like the power imbalance there. This whole possessive, she's mine. Then he grabs Lyra and poofs her back to his penthouse. Immediately, his body pins me against a wall and his lips are on mine. And oh gods, I'm in trouble because I'm kissing him back. This is different from the last time. That kiss started out with a non-lust related reason and turned into something else. This is already something else. It takes the heat and quivering already running rampant through me and shifts them into 1,000 sensations that turn my mind hazy and set the rest of me on fire. I've never been kissed, not before him, but I've dreamed of it. I never imagined anything like this, though. Like Hades wants to devour me, like I want him to. I don't like it. I don't like when it's romanticizing. So then we go into Hermes' labor next. It's boring. Yeah, that's the one where they're in the glass containers on the mountainside. Lyra says, I'm like a bug in a jar with the lid missing. And I just wrote, wow, profound. She and Zay did agree, like while they were talking, before they were interrupted by Poseidon and Hades. Zay and Lyra agreed to work together. So Lyra uses her little tattoo. So she gets the owl to come to life. And she tells the owl, like, hey, tell Zay this is the answer to the riddle. And then the owl flies over to where Zay is and gives him the answer. And then they end up winning it. And so Zay technically is the one that wins the labor, and as a result, he gets like the little flying sandals. He takes Lyra and they fly off the mountainside. After the labor, Hades is ticked off with Lyra because she chose Zay as her champion, and she's like mad about this because she was like, I'm trying to win this for you, like what's your deal? And he's like, why would you pick Zay? He's the weakest of the bunch. And I guess because of his allergies make it so he's not as powerful as the other competitors. Excuse me, that's rude. Those of us with allergies are perfectly capable of doing these things. We just can't breathe. It ain't easy being wheezy, am I right? Then we meet Cerberus, and oh boy, was this a letdown for me. He wears black spiked armor around his neck and shoulders, strapped under his chest, and more goes up each snout and over the crown of each head. And all of his ears stand straight up, tall and pointed and alert. The spiked collar is what killed me. I was like, why does he have a collar on in the first place? He's a god. Like, nope. Lyra decides that she's going to name Cerberus for things. She's going to refer to them as different things. So, because each head of Cerberus apparently has like a different inner monologue. So he's described as like a dog and referred to as a dog, but he's sentient because he can talk. So he's a god, but he kind of talks a little dumb because he's a dog. I don't know. It was weird. I hated it. I really hated it. So Lyra decides she's going to name each head. So it's Sir, Burr, and Russ. I almost chucked my freaking book out the window. I was like, she's going to really, like, the whole thing is Cerberus. Just call him Cerberus. Lyra's like, can I pet him? No. That's Hades. Hades is like, no, you can't pet my dog. And then Cerberus is like, yes, pretty mortal, you may. A voice like a wise elder resounds in my head as though I'm standing in a cathedral, smooth like a river and so deep you can never find the bottom. All right. Cerberus is talking to me, in my head. Seriously, best day ever. I hate this so much. We love pettings from nice ladies. A similar but slightly different voice, a tad higher and more eager, says next. I immediately place that voice with the head on the left, a giant tongue lolling out one side of his mouth like his head is hanging out a car window. Permission granted, says a third voice, gruffer and curter, his snout lifting into the air. I stare at the dog. 3 voices. Each head has its own personality. So then Lyra meets up with Zay to go talk in secret. And he flies them up to a temple where apparently, I don't know if this is Zeus's temple or whatever, who cares? She flies to his temple and they're trying to talk in secret because apparently when you're up on this temple, like no gods or champions or mortals, like no magic or whatever works there. It's like a common neutral ground. So they fly up there to have a secret talk because apparently also the gods can't overhear them. Zay tells her that Dex, another competitor, is mad that Zay and Lyra became allies because everyone hates her because she's Hades' champion. Apparently Dex also lives in the same house that Zay does. It's been really tense for them. They start talking strategy about how they're going to go about winning these future labors. And then Dex shows up along with a couple other champions who are mad, obviously, about this fact that these two are allies. They like act like they're going to basically kill Zay and Lyra. And so out of desperation, they like jump off of this railing. And so they have to fall for a little bit before Zay's little flying sandals can kick into effect. And as soon as they do, it like jerks Lyra out of his arms and she falls. And of course, she falls into the river Styx. I think that's how you pronounce it. This river, of course, leads to the underworld. So yay. So apparently like no mortal can survive making it down this river. But I think of Lyra in her little whitewater rafting activity. She makes it down there in one piece, which, you know, of course she does. She meets Karen, and apparently he's hot.
Oh no, he's hot!
Basically, it looks like a pirate out of Pirates of the Caribbean. It's kind of that's what I pictured, at least. I whip around to find a man standing at my feet and have to tip my head back to see all of him. This can't be Karen, can it? He's really hot. I mean, not like Hades, but this being who is described as all things hideous is anything but. Tall and lean, he has sandy brown hair that looks almost blonde against fawn-colored skin and laughing eyes somewhere between blue and green. He's not the brooding kind of handsome I'd expect given the Ferryman of the Dead title and all. Instead, he comes off as approachable, with kind eyes and a type of open face that invites you to grab a beer and have a chat. So she meets Karen and he's like, you know, a golden retriever. That's basically what he is. Sorry, I forgot to mention this one earlier. So apparently Hades gave Lyra Persephone's pomegranate seeds that were like in her tiara. And apparently he gave those to her to use, but only like if she thought she was going to die. So, because apparently in this world, Persephone is dead. She's dead. Lyra has been carrying around Persephone's seeds. And Karen asks her like, hey, why don't you use the seed when you were like getting swept down the river? She's like, well, they're in my vest and I was kind of drowning, so I wasn't really fixated on trying to find a seed. Karen tells her that apparently these seeds will take her like wherever she wants to go. Picture the destination clearly in your mind, a place where a person either will do, then swallow one pearl. Oh wait, I'm sorry, they're not seeds, they're pearls. Her seeds? I thought they were the pomegranate seeds. The pomegranate seeds / pearls or whatever have they can transport you wherever you want. Right, Butter? Right.
Oh, yeah.
It's all coming together.
So then next is Dionysus's, wait, did we get an angry interaction with Hades? So then Hades does show up, and he's mad at her for falling down the river. He's always mad at her. Like, she didn't mean to fall into the river, and he's like, he shows up, he kneels in front of me, running his hands over my body like he did after Poseidon's labor. This time there's an underlying disquiet to his actions and his pinched expression. Are you hurt? Probably. I'm not in the mood, Lyra. Answer the question. I'm serious. I think I'm in shock. Nothing feels like it's critical, though. He grits his jaw, but he nods, still checking me over. He works his way up my arms and brushes my wet hair back and hisses. And that's when I see it. Concern, real concern. I know because I've dreamed of someone, my parents, Boone, even Felix, looking at me like that all my life. It darkens his eyes in a way that sends my heart tumbling. He brushes his fingertip over a spot at my temple, and I wince at the pain that slices through my head at that touch. Sorry, he murmurs, but he doesn't stop, threading his fingers through my hair, checking for more places I bumped into rocks, and it takes every ounce of my feeble self-control to not let either man know what I just realized. Hades might take up all the air in the room, but he's arrogant and bossy, not to mention secretive and closed off. Plus, there's that nasty temper, and he dragged me into the crucible, but I like him. No, stop it. They head into Dionysus's labor next. It's that cave system like I explained earlier. They figure out that if you get touched by these poison ivy things, that the alcohol they're carrying, you got it, that heals them or whatnot. There's another competitor that falls and like is dying from the sheer amount of these sores that are on her. Lyra uses one of her little pomegranate seed pearl things to transfer her to the end, over to the finish line, so that way she can get more of that alcohol on her. Apparently, she's not supposed to have these pearls, and so after the crucible, or after that labor finishes, the daemons, who are basically like the referees, they realize what she's done and they come to arrest her. Hades, because you know he's so awesome, he's like, no, take me in her place instead. And this is where I get kind of upset with the writing here. The daemons appear in midair before us, massive black wings sending the waters of the Styx eddying under them as 4 sets of fury-filled eyes land on me. Lyra, Kiers, they say in unison, come with. Hades shoves his hands in front of him, his wrists held together. I offer myself in Lyra's place. I offer myself as tribute. What? No, Karen yanks me back when I try to run to Hades. I broke the rules, Hades says without looking my way. Take me. With battle cries to wake the dead, they fly at him, so fast, so violent. Don't do this, I yell. It's my fault. I reach a hand out like I can get to him. Stop them somehow. They take him by the arms when they jerk him off his feet, flying him away from me. Hades finally looks straight at me again. Please, I say. Beg. Don't. It's already done. And then they're gone. Lyra's like, oh, Hades, he took my spot. He's so great. Like, how selfless. I'm like, no, he should have taken your spot. One, it's not your fault that you have these things given to you that could get you arrested. That's his fault. Like, why? No, he should be the one that gets in trouble for this. You're the human in this. He's the god. Whatever punishment is put on him, he will heal from it. For you, though, you're immortal. You won't heal from whatever punishment they put on you. And you're not even allowed to have any medical intervention at this point because you didn't win the last crucible or the last labor. So it's like, yeah, he did the bare minimum there, okay? Like, and honestly, you could sit there and argue and say that he didn't do it out of the good of his heart to like protect Lyra. He did it because he was like, I need Lyra alive so she can actually win this thing. Like, it really wasn't that, you know, selfless of him. I'm sorry. I know the author is probably trying to put it that way. I do not buy it. I absolutely hate it. Do better. So the punishment that Hades received was apparently he had his hand cut by the dagger of Orion. And for a god, it takes like 2 or 3 days to heal. But for a human like Lyra, it never heals. It's an unhealing wound that she will always have. And I'm like, yeah, Hades needed to take your place there, okay? Because that's ridiculous. Then, like, Karen tells her, he fills her in and says that Hades and Persephone's relationship isn't what she thinks it was, that Hades loved Persephone as, like, a little sister. And I'm like, okay, sure, that's super convenient. Apparently she rules Elysium with him. Karen tells Lyra, like, just don't ask Hades too many questions about it. Like, he'll reveal it in time, blah, 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 blah. Be patient with him. Then we jump right into Apollo's labor. Like I said before, Apollo's and Artemis's labors are back-to-back, side by side. They have to get through, for Apollo's, Lyra ends up winning because she figures out that if you sing, it opens the door. She wins Apollo's labor. And then they go into Artemis's, and that's the one where they get the flags. It's like the capture the flag. She doesn't do so hot on that one. But, you know, Lyra, as she had one of her flags that was taken away was courage or whatever. And now she's overcome with all this fear. And she realizes that she can use fear to her advantage to push through the labor and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, again, I understand what the author is trying to do here. It's like we're trying to sit there and say that you can use fear and push through it and be perseverance and all this other stuff. And I'm like, sure, fine, whatever. But nope, I'm so checked out of this story at this point that like nothing is impressing me at this point. When I finished reading these two labors, I was like, oh my gosh, there are 7 more labors to go. We're like, I don't know, 250 some pages into this book. I'm like, we have 7 more of these. And I'm like, I hate this. I can't believe I gotta sit through 7 more of these. Cause like, it just wasn't interesting. It's not written well. It's not intriguing. I thought it was pretty boring. The chapters are super short. So like, it doesn't feel like anything's really happening. It just feels like they get through these labors like super, super fast, which I understand that they have to move along fairly quickly since they have like 13 or whatever. But it felt so, it's like labor and then like some weird stuff happens outside the labor and then labor and then weird stuff that happens. It's boring. So because she won Apollo's labor, she's given the Tears of Eos, and this allows you to see past glamours and spells and magic, but after they wear off, sometimes it causes mortals to go insane. So we get this like weird thing, this weird throwaway. I say throwaway because it just never comes back up in the story. While Lyra is being healed from in Artemis's labor, they have to fight off a dragon, and so Lyra gets burned by this dragon, so she's got this severe burn that she's getting healed, but because she won Apollo's labor, she can actually get healing, so she's, you know, in the hospital or whatever, and she's getting healed, and the TV is on, and it's showing footage and coverage of the Crucible, and apparently these 2 people come on screen, and apparently they are Lyra's parents, and they're say how proud they are of her and all this other stuff. Lyra has she's no memory of her parents, what they look like or anything. She doesn't even know what her name was when she was born. So it's clear that they've been paid off by somebody of some sort to lie. And it's weird. Lyra gets really mad watching this because she's like, my parents are acting like they care about me and they don't give 2 craps about me. And so she takes her axe and she throws it at the screen and it cracks and whatnot. She calms down and she and Hades are sitting there talking about his relationship with Persephone, and he brings up that it was strictly a platonic relationship, that he viewed her as a sister. He wants to become the king of the gods because the power that he gets from that will allow him to set things straight. And he's like, don't worry, I'm not going to unleash anything. I just want to set things straight. But he doesn't tell her what specifically. And then she's all like, I believe you. And he's like, you trust too easily. And then they make out. And it's weird. So yeah, they're sitting there like sucking face, and Aphrodite shows up. Aphrodite's weird. She's weird. She's weird in this book. Oh my. Aphrodite breathes, and I can picture her fanning herself. I might, just from the energy wafting off the 2 of you. Better not let the others catch you though. I read that and was like, ew. I understand that Aphrodite again is like the goddess of love and whatnot, but I'm like, that feels weird to me. Don't like it. Okay, moving on. Butter! Smooth like butter. Smooth like butter. Butter, you have to sit on your pillow, lady. Finish your mealworms. Aphrodite shows up and she's like, okay, we're going into my labor now. This is so weird. So they wake up, and like I said before, where they're handcuffed to these beds. And I'm like, all right. To me, it's really sexual. But I feel like whenever you bring stuff like this in, it needs to be all on a consensual basis. And none of these people are here willingly. They've been taken without their consent. And then they're put in kind of a compromising situation that is clearly sexual. I don't know. It made me feel uncomfortable. So Aphrodite starts describing what her labor is going to be. So they have to go into the dream realm and find their loved one. If you wake them successfully, this person will then play in the next labor with you as a partner. She holds out a hand, and with a shower of pink sparks, 2 objects float in the air above her palm, a bow and a quiver of arrows. The first person to free their loved one wins the prize of Eros's bow and arrows. These arrows only induce a temporary adoration, lasting a few hours at most. But in those few hours, that creature, man, beast, or ... Did she just glance at me? God will not be able to resist you or say no to any request you make. I did not like that. Here's a prize that you can win where someone can temporarily be, you can force someone to do whatever you want. It's so uncomfortable. Like she's sitting there like making eye contact with Lyra. Ugh. Lyra goes into the dream world and she comes across a cabin, and the cabin has these two giant spiders hanging out in front of it. So Lyra calls upon her little spider tattoo, and the spider comes like jumps off her arm and like goes over and talks to the spiders, and they like leave the entryway, so she's able to get into the cabin unscathed. And so who of all people are in there? It's Boone. She's surprised that Boone's there. I'm not surprised because it's like Boone is the one that she actually has a real relationship with, so that makes more sense to me. So she successfully wakes him up. Apparently, like the spiders at the door were to symbolize that like he hates spiders, so she had to like scare those off in order to get him to wake up. They fly back to wherever they're being held in this labor, and then Lyra wakes up and Boone is there. Now we have to have Boone and Hades meet, and it's super like tense and awkward. I've never seen Boone go so still as when he stares down the god of death. So you're the asshole who put Lyra's life in jeopardy by making her play in these effed up games. Hades doesn't react with so much as a twitch. So you're the thief who thought he made it in and out of my house without notice. Boone frowns, glancing at me, then back to Hades before his expression turns sly in a way I'm more than familiar with. He's up to something. Caught that, did you? Boone snakes a hand around my waist, giving me a squeeze. Just trying to help. I know. Hades doesn't even glance at that arm around me. It's why I let you live. Oh, good grief. So yeah, they have this like party to attend, so Hades poofs them into some like nice clothes. So they all go to this dinner party. They each have to introduce their loved ones and then tell everybody like, it's like show and tell. Like, this is my loved one and this is why I love them. They're all sitting at this table and they're each going around introducing their loved one. And Lyra notices that Hades is basically like flirting with another champion's loved one. And I'm like, yeah, it's super mature of you. This, I wave awkwardly to my right, is Boone Runner. He is the pledge in the Order of Thieves with me. I go to sit and my butt is halfway to the chair when Athena slides a question my way. Friends? Where is she going with this? I pause, then stand back up. Yes, we're friends. Boone's grin is all things Boone, and it's no surprise when at least half of the group grin back at him. Lyra goes on to kind of like brag about Boone. She says, Boone is the most talented of our pledges. I tell the room at large, and I'm sorry, my roosters are out front. They're like standing outside my window crowing. Boone is the most talented of our pledges, I tell the room at large, and a bit of a cheat. You might want to lock up your valuables. Hey, Boone protests, but I know that he's protesting me warning them, not the veracity of the claim itself. Well, that's too juicy to ignore, Dionysus says, joining the conversation. At least his interest seems genuine. Got any stories? Hundreds, but only because I've been paying attention. I raise a single brow at Boone. Which one should I pick? There are so many. They're sitting there and they basically like steal the crowd. They start telling stories and everybody's having a great time. And again, this is where I'm like, Boone and Lyra together makes so much more sense because they have history, they have shared experiences, they work well together, they have good humor with one another, they know each other well. Like, they're more well fit together. As like other people are sitting there talking about their loved ones, Boone leans over to whisper in my ear, what are you going to say about me, I wonder? Not that I've had a huge crush on him for years. That you've been a pain in my ass? Stop, you're going to make me blush. I chuckle, then pause. Something feels different with us. Easier. A glance shows me that on my left, Hades is leaning away from me talking to Nora. He even smiles at her. No dimples, but still he's charming enough that she smiles back widely, visibly starstruck. Apparently he can put some mortals at ease. So this whole chapter is like my blueprint for why Boone and Lyra should be together. Because he teases her, they have good humor, they have shared experiences. She even notes that it's just easier talking to him, and I always feel like that's such a good indicator that you're good with somebody when talking with them and interacting with them. It's just easy. And that's mentioned there. It's not mentioned at all with Hades. Like, Hades is always mad. He's always mad when he approaches Lyra, and we'll get into that a little bit more. Yeah, Lyra sat there and she kind of bragged about Boone, about like how great of a thief he is and whatnot. And then he turns around and he brags about her. I can't help the heat creeping up into my cheeks. No one has ever in my life bragged about me. Not once. It feels nice. Like, he sat there, like, he gave her credit where credit was due. It's very sweet. It's very endearing. And also feels very real. And so again, he's just the bigger green flag in the room, you know? After the party, Boone shows up at Lyra's room, and he's holding the Helm of Darkness, which he stole from Dex. Dex is another competitor, and he hates Lyra, and he's the bad character in this. So I think the Helm of Darkness was what Dex won it from one of the laborers. I don't remember which one. And so Boone went out and stole it because he's like, hey, let's like use this to our advantage right now. Apparently all of the gods are having like a little meeting, and so somehow Lyra and Boone know about it, and so they're going to use the Helm of Darkness to be able to like stay invisible, I guess, to be in on that meeting. Boone takes the helm from my hands and slips it over his head. Immediately he disappears. I reach out and encounter a solid muscled stomach covered by a shirt, and the instant I touch him, I disappear too. I ink my fingers back and I rematerialize. Wow, that's handy. Makes this tougher though. His voice comes from close, really close. What? I ask. There's a heartbeat before his lips press against mine. The kiss is sweet and chaste. I jerk back on a squeak of shock, and his low chuckle sounds still close. Geez, Boone, I grumble. What was that for? I just wanted you to have that, as a thank you for loving me.
Thank you for loving me.
His voice has gone serious now, and I wish I could see his face, even if it's just between friends. I don't know about you, but I don't know many friends who just kiss each other for thank you for loving me kisses. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know friends that really do that. So yeah, I liked a lot of their dialogue and their interactions in this chapter. Now that we're officially friends, you should know that I'm not just going to sit idly by and watch you end up with the god of death. There's no future with him, Lyra. I know that. He tips my chin up with a gentle finger, so I have no choice but to look him in the eyes. Maybe more than anyone else in the world, I understand your background, your past, who you are, and what you've had to overcome. What you'll go back to after the crucible is over. Where is he going with this? I'm just saying, now that you have a friend, maybe it will be easier. You have a future to look forward to in the overworld. A future to look forward to. I had plans, but maybe not alone anymore.
You know, I haven't been this choked up since I got a hunk of moussaka caught in my throat. Huh?
They poof off and they sneak into this meeting with the gods. The meeting was basically all the gods questioning Hades and being like, what is it that you want to accomplish if you win the crucible? So they're trying to get him to reveal his actual intentions behind everything, and he doesn't admit to it. I was like, this meeting could have been an email because it literally did nothing interesting. But apparently Hades is like aware that Lyra is there because he looks directly at her, and she's like, crap. They go back to the house, and Lyra's like, you better take that helmet back to Dex before he realizes it's gone. So as they're talking, Hades poofs back, and he's like super calm and collected.
Fine, I'm cool, I'm fine.
But it's like, to me, it feels kind of like threatening, because Boone does maybe the worst possible thing and steps in front of me, blocking me protectively from Hades with his body, tension radiating from him so much the air around me heats. He's holding the helm with one hand, but the other curls into a fist at his side. This was my idea. You don't say, Hades drawls. I wince at the tone. He's getting quieter. Boone's shoulders draw back. I won't let you hurt her. And the fact that Boone straight up has to sit there and say, like, I won't let you hurt her, I'm like, red flag, red flag. Like, why is Hades giving off this vibe of like, I'm gonna hurt this girl? I don't like it. It makes me mad. Lyra tells Boone, like, he's not gonna hurt me, whatever. Just take the helm back and it'll be fine. I'll handle him, is basically what she's like. But then Boone refuses to leave her alone with Hades. And I'm like, yeah, smart. Like, what is the question even here? Boone is like, this man is being possessive and creepy and angry. I'm not leaving you alone with him. And yet for some reason I'm supposed to sit here and think that Hades is the better option. I'm like, no, absolutely not. And then he freaking does this. A rope of smoke whips around Boone's chest, and suddenly he's dragged across the room, or flung more like, his body sailing through the air to hit a wall, then drop to the floor. The thud of impact hits at the same time as the metallic clunk of the helm on the marble. Faster than a blink, Hades is across the room, his hand curling around the back of my neck, eyes ablaze.
I'm in danger!
Hades is mad at her because she and Boone snuck into this meeting, and he's like, how could you be so reckless and stupid? She's like, well, first of all, you're the one that told me early on to use whatever power I can to my advantage to get information on my fellow competitors and the gods. So like, I'm just taking advantage of what was handed to me. And so he's like sitting there, he's yelling at her. He's so mad. He's yelling at her for doing this. Hades sits there and he's like, really what all of this is, he's just jealous of Boone. He sits there and he asks her like, well, does he know about your curse? And she's like, obviously. Does he know about your curse? I give him a flat look. Yes. Hades' gaze narrows, glittering at me in silvery slits. I would always tell you important information that might help you survive the crucible, Lyra. He almost sounds hurt that I'd think otherwise. I know, that's why I had to do this. You've already been punished for me. I just hate this. he's like, he's mad at her for doing this, and then he's like, well, I would have told you all the information you needed to know. Well, like, clearly he hasn't, because he hasn't even told her the real reason why he wants to become king of the gods anyway. He like gets all up in her face, and he's like, he kissed you. And then Lyra's like, how do you know? Like, can he see a kiss on me? And then, of course, like, to make his point, he starts like possessively making out with her. But make no mistake, Lyra, I want you to be mine. Not a champion, not a thief, not a mortal. Mine, he snarls the word, and no one else's. He gives me one more hard, claiming kiss when he raises his head. Hades looks over my shoulder directly into the flames, keeping Boone away from us. Flames, I assumed, were too high and too deep for Boone to see through, and Hades smiles. So he straight up, like, he sits there, he's mad. He's like, I want you to be mine and be nobody else's. And then he's making out with her. Meanwhile, Boone can see like everything that's happening here, and I'm like, I don't like this. I do not like this. This is not attractive. This isn't sexy. This isn't... As he prowls past Boone, he snaps, keep your hands off my champion if you know what's good for you, and return that helm before anyone figures out it's gone. You, not her. For a second, I think Boone might punch Hades in the face, but instead he rushes to my side. You okay? Relief that he might not have seen anything doesn't unknot the emotions twisting inside me like a den of writhing snakes, but I nod. Boone glares at Hades. You act like I'm the one who's done something wrong here, but I'm not, and neither is Lyra. Hades stops, back to us, as Boone continues. This is your fault. There's no reason for you to have taken her away from her life and put her in danger like this. Okay, so then they go on to Hephaestus's labor. So that's the one where they're like, they have to go to the tower that's in the woods. So they go to the tower, her and Boone, they have this cute little interaction together where like Boone, Lyra tries to convince Boone like, hey, maybe like don't go with me, like if you stay back, like you'll stay safe, let me go do this. And he's like, hey, I'm not letting you go by yourself, like we're in this together. And Boone even tells her like, this is the first time that we get to like go out and do something together as a team. He was like, I wouldn't trade this for the world. And I'm like, that's super sweet. So like they're like joking with one another, they're in good spirits, and they go off and they're like determined to win this thing. They get to the tower and they have to, there's like levels in the tower, and like there's automatons in each one. Apparently the first automaton is described as a tiny child made entirely of gold. The automaton kid, who looks like he's about 3 years old, slowly lifts a wicked looking butcher knife, and his sweet bow of mouth stretches into a smile that's pure evil. His twinkling, delighted laughs fill the room as he runs straight at me, slashing wildly with the blade. Holy, I yelled. I grabbed for my axe, and I'm so rattled by the murder child that I miss the pocket for it. Fumbling around, I dodge and run. Boone gets between us and punts the metal kid across the room. The automaton hits the wall, but gets back to his feet and giggles before charging us again. By this time, I've given up on my axe. There's something about chopping a child, even when that's an automaton, that I just can't stomach. Dodging the homicidal laughing demon toddler, I pull the wire twine from my vest that Zay returned to me after Dionysus' labor. This section here I actually liked. I'm like, this is kind of funny. It's relatable. I'm enjoying myself. The author clearly could probably write well. She can write well, but the way the avenues that the story took, I just, So they decide after they complete the second level that they're just gonna like go out and climb up the side of the tower and get to the top and win that way instead of having to go through all the different levels, which I was like, cool, because I didn't really want to read all those levels. So they get out and they're like scaling up the tower, and Lyra starts humming again, and I'm sure you can see where this goes. Her humming gives away their cover, and an automaton that's in like the next level like slices through the tower and hits Boone, and it knocks Boone off, and he falls. And as he falls, there's like spikes and stuff at the like on the outside of this tower, and he falls and gets impaled on these skewers and dies.
What?
I was not pleased. Like, I had a feeling he was gonna die. Like the foreshadowing type stuff was really heavy, so you're like, something bad's gonna happen. Lyra ends up like, she manages to climb up to the top of the tower, and like she's distraught as all get out. And as soon as she gets to the top of the tower, she's immediately in Hades' arms, and so yeah, she's distraught. Like Boone is dead, and she's just devastated by this. And of course, Hayes all like, oh, it's okay, honey, I love you so much. And secretly, you know, he's sitting there like, hell yeah, Batman, I don't have to worry about Boone anymore.
2 thumbs way up.
Now Hades is the good guy because he's comforting her. Sorry, Hades murmurs, I'm sorry. He runs a soothing hand over my hair. I'm sorry. His words are like a ribbon of warmth wrapping around my heart, not taking away the pain, but soothing it, gentling it. It slows the memories I don't want to relive. His words should not be comforting or warming you at all, because 2 seconds ago, the dude was like screaming at you and being nasty and then making out with you and telling you you are his possession just to like get back at another guy. No, absolutely not.
I own you!
Hades is like, listen, if you win this crucible, I can make Boone into a god. Lyra's like, oh my gosh. So now she's got another driving force to win. Lyra sits there and tells him like that she trusts Hades now because he's shown that he can be trustworthy. And I'm like, nope, absolutely. No, sir. No, ma'am. No, 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 no. Like, have we learned nothing? Oh, and then as this is happening, she realizes that she's been gravely injured because the automaton that killed Boone by like stabbing him also stabbed her, and she's got like a stab wound like clear through her stomach and out the other side. And so she collapses and almost dies. So Lyra's literally on her deathbed, and nothing is working. And so somehow Hades is able to bend the rules, and he gets Asclepius, however you say his name, to heal Lyra, but none of it's working. Hades gives her some of his own blood and then makes her drink some of the river water from like the river Styx. She drinks that, but he has to give her his blood first because that river water would probably kill her as a mortal. So that works, and then all of a sudden he's just like, Hades is like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this worked. But there was kind of a nice moment that Hades like basically summoned Boone's soul. Lyra woke up at one point and she could see Boone in her hospital room, and he's telling her like, you have to survive this. I don't want to see you down in the underworld. He's like, you need to live until you're at least 80 or older, and so I will see you in 80 some years. Like, if I see you down here tomorrow, I'm gonna be ticked off at you. And again, I just thought it was cute because I'm like, it just shows better chemistry between the two characters and better relationship. Lyra then does eventually heal, but 2 weeks have gone by, and this is probably the best part of this book. You ready for this? So 2 weeks have gone by, and so she's missed 3 labors. So we don't have to read. We don't have to read about 3 more boring labors. Yay! And Hades promises that if he becomes king of the gods, that he will also make sure that all the champions that have perished in the crucible, they'll have the choice to, they can either go to Elysium or be brought back from the underworld. Before the next labor starts, Lyra ends up meeting with like all the surviving champions, and she tells them, she's trying to get them to ally with her. And she tells them, like, listen, these are the things that Hades is gonna do if he wins the elections for 2024. She was like, this is why you should vote for Hades. This is why you should basically let me win this, because all these great things are in store for you if you do. All the champions are sitting there and they're hearing what she's saying about all these promises that Hades made. And they're like, let us think about this before we give you an answer. While Lyra is waiting for her answer back from the rest of the champions, Hades takes her down into Elysium, and he shows her each part of Elysium, like each person who's there, it's like their own personal paradise, if you will. And so he's telling her like, Boone's down here and he has his own personal like paradise that he's living in currently, so Boone's safe. She just thinks that's the sweetest darn thing, that Hades really does care about the people that are in his care. She's so just swept up in how wonderful Hades is for his kindness that she decides she's gonna kiss him. I don't care how sweet you think he is, he's problematic. She's feeling a little frisky, and so she decides she's gonna just strip naked and be all like, you wanna join me? And she straight up tells him, I'm offering myself to you. I'm offering myself to you, I tell him, just to be perfectly clear. No deals, no quid pro quo, no expectations. He's not interested at first. He is interested. He's straight up interested.
Yeah.
But he's all like, I can't. He's all broody and mopey. Hades, you know, he at first doesn't join her, and then he does, and then they have probably one of the most boring scenes I think I've ever read. Hades sits there and he tries telling her like, I can't give you the future that you need because you're immortal and I'm a god. And again, for me, this is kind of a red flag too, because it just sounds lame coming from a god. This girl has absolutely nothing in the mortal world. She has nothing at all. And I was like, I'm pretty sure Hades, as a god, if you really truly loved her and wanted to be with her, you could figure something out, you know what I mean? Instead of doing this whole gaslight thing, like, I can't let you fall for me and I can't give you what you really need. But then, like, when Boone was there and Boone was the guy that could give Lyra what she needed, Hades was hateful to Boone, didn't like him. It was a complete jerk.
I can't believe you're getting so worked up about some guy.
I don't like how this is going. I think it's toxic. I think it's immature. This is a god. He should be like super intelligent and whatnot, and he comes off as no better than a stupid 15-year-old boy. After their super uneventful, lackluster scene, Lyra wakes up and Hades isn't there, which I'm like, again, red flag. It's a red flag. He's not there, and she's all like distraught over this. And then she tries to gaslight herself into believing that, oh, Hades is just giving me space. He's not giving you space. He's messing around with your head. He can't figure out what he wants, and he's going to drag you through it and make you feel just as bad. Then Hades comes down to breakfast. He's super moody. He ignores Lyra, which I'm like, that's awful. They just slept together the night before, and he comes down. Mind you, she was a virgin. Then he comes down the next morning, ignores her. She doesn't wake up next to him. What? What? Like, these are awful, awful things to do to somebody. So she's in the kitchen eating breakfast, and Rima, one of the champions that she met with the day before to talk about, basically, vote for Hades 2024. Finally, she gets her answer from the other champions. They're like, Lyra, we can't let you win because so-and-so has the gift of prophecy right now. And he said that if Hades wins, he saw a vision of Hades like burning the world down, and we just can't do it.
I'm about to rearrange the cosmos.
The champions have unanimously decided, no, they're not going to help Lyra. She's on her own. She's got to win this for herself now. Then they go into Athena's, you are Athena. It's clear that Dex, the guy that already hates Lyra, it's clear that he's been like messed with somehow because he's like deranged and trying to kill Lyra. Instead of competing in the Crucible or in labor, he's trying to go after Lyra. Lyra's confident that she'll be able to win this labor though because it's a maze. And she's like, my thief training allows me to win this. And I'm like, what thief training? What thief training? Because we haven't heard a lick. We haven't heard a lick of how you grew up, what you learned, what you did, nothing. Mind you, she was in the order since she was like 3 years old. She's 23 years old now, okay? We have such little backstory on Lyra that I'm like, she's so shallow and boring. I'm like, what thief training are you talking about? What agility, what skills are you bringing to this labor? So then Dex kills Make, another champion. He like snaps her neck and kills her, and then he tries to kill Lyra, and then Zay steps in, stabs Dex, and Dex dies. And they're all like, oh no, I didn't mean to kill Dex. I don't care about any of the other champions. I don't care about them because they don't mean anything to the story. So yeah, whatever. She makes it through the labor. She's expecting for Hades to come get her because he's her patron god. He should be there for her, and he's not there. He's not there. Karen is there to get her, and she's like she's really disappointed and let down, and she's like, why the heck is Hades being so distant from me now? Why is he being so weird? I don't understand. Like, did I do something wrong? And then Karen sits there and he insists that Hades would not have slept with her if he didn't care about her, because apparently Hades is this really great guy. And I'm like, I don't give two craps. The behavior you're displaying afterwards does not indicate genuine concern or affection for the other person. It's so immature. Hades is different with Lyra, like he smiles more and he's more at ease. And I'm like, I don't care. If the author wanted us to root for Hades, she really missed it on this one, because I liked Boone. I was like, this guy's great right out of the starting gate. Hades though, I'm like, this guy's shifty. So the author really dropped the ball with Hades. I'm sorry, she just did. So she's sitting there talking with Karen about this, and he finally tells her, hey, just so you know, Persephone isn't actually dead. Hades wants to become the king of the gods because he needs the power that you get from that title. He needs that power to go free Persephone. She's stuck in Tartarus. That's why Hades is doing this. Woohoo! It's out in the open. Why Hades couldn't tell her that, I don't know. The last part of this book, a lot happens and it's dumb. It's too much, it's shallow, it's too fast, you can't absorb any of it. Lyra straight up sits there and she gets mad and she gets jealous over Persephone because she's sitting there thinking that Hades likes Persephone. And so like, she has this dumb bout of jealousy towards her. Hades finally shows up again and he's once again mad at Lyra. Lyra called Athena a monster twice during her labor, and Hades like, what? You know what happens when mortals say crap about the gods? And he's like yelling at her for this, and she's like, she is a monster. Like, what? I'm not gonna, she's like, again, what does this girl have to live for? Everything has been taken away from her. They're sitting there arguing. Lyra tells Hades like, hey, you made me burn for you. You led me on. I'm mad at you. Hades is putting off this whole like vibe of like that he doesn't genuinely care for her at all. And she's like, oh my gosh, he only viewed me as a tool this whole time. The referee, Damon people, whatever, they show up to arrest Lyra because apparently Athena called for her arrest because she called Athena a monster twice and she didn't like that. She wants Lyra arrested so that afterwards, after the crucible is done, then Lyra's punishment will be to face Kronos. So to keep her safe from Athena and the other gods, she's being arrested and basically put under like witness protection so nobody murders her. before the last labor. I don't know, like some days go by that and it's uneventful. She's in jail, it's uneventful, it doesn't matter. She gets let out of jail right before the last labor, and Hades is like super calm and casual and acts like he doesn't care. And he's all like, so were you treated well in there? And she's like, that's all you have to say to me? And I'm just like, oh my gosh. Lyra reveals to Hades, like, hey, by the way, I know why you're trying to win the Crucible. I just don't understand, like, why you wouldn't tell me, like, why you wouldn't be honest with me and tell me, like, this was your reasoning behind why you were doing this for the first time ever. And he's just like, every person I've ever trusted has betrayed me. I want to soften at that. I feel my insides squish a little, but I don't let him see. You could have trusted me. His head rears back slowly, arrogance and impatience becoming a mantle over his face. This isn't helping anyone. Then he stalks closer to grab me by my arm and we blink out. When we blink back in, we're standing with all the other champions and their patron gods on the flat, cracked earth of a desert somewhere in the other world. Night. Somewhere far from Olympus then. Don't die, Hades says as he lets go, already turning away from me. Were you really going to make Boone into a god, or was that a lie to get on my good side? He pauses and barely cants his head in my direction. All I see is the side of his face, his jaw clenched. Finish this labor and go home, Lyra. Forget about everything that happened here. Then he's gone, and I have my answer. He's purposely being a jerk, and I don't like it. And I don't like the whole sob story of like, everyone I've ever trusted has turned against me. I don't care. I don't care. It doesn't give you a license to like treat people like garbage. So the last labor, this is Zeus's labor. There's the 3 gates, the Minotaur, the Kraken, the Siren. So by the time they reach the third part of this, Lyra realizes, so all the other champions get like sucked up and taken off into the sky by the Sirens. And Lyra's sitting there like, why wasn't I taken? And then it dawns on her, oh, I wasn't taken because I'm unlovable because of my curse. That's why Hades chose me. He chose me because I can't do anything. I guess this is supposed to be some type of revelation, but I just don't. I was like, what? Hades didn't choose me because he saw something special when we first met. The exact opposite, in fact. I take a shuddering breath, then another. Hades picked me because of what I'm not. Lovable. Lyra's the only one that has been taken, so she sits there and uses those little pomegranate pearls or whatever. She poofs her way to where all the other champions are being kept, manages to sneak behind and go unnoticed by all the other Sirens, and she ends up managing to like poof everybody else from there back down into the regular labor. And so, I know this sounds ridiculous, but it's hard to describe because it's just not whatever. So she gets all the champions back down to where they need to be, and then they're like, Lyra, it's you, girl. You've got to win this. Go, go, go. So they make Lyra go run across the finish line first. I forgot to mention too. So how this works is Lyra, even if she won this crucible, even if she won this labor, she shouldn't be able to win the entire crucible because she's only won one other labor. But Zeus changed the rules up that if whoever won his labor, they get 3 wins towards their total number. Lyra crosses the finish line, and now she's got 4 wins, so she's now just won the crucible. And I'm like, that was super convenient. She's expecting applause and all this stuff after she wins the crucible, or after she wins Zeus's labor.
Bring on the confetti! Easy with the confetti.
And then Cerberus shows up and he tries to kill her because he's been commanded to kill Lyra. Lyra had activated one of her little skeleton soldiers that's part of Boone's relic. One of her little activated skeleton soldiers sees that Cerberus is attacking her, and so he goes and he kills Cerberus. So Cerberus is like laying there dying, and she's all like, no, not my dog. And then she puts one of the little pomegranate seed things in Cerberus's mouth and then thinks of the river Styx, because apparently Cerberus could be healed with the water from the river. So she poofs Cerberus away. Very convenient. Don't worry, Cerberus doesn't actually die. Zeus shows up and he's like, you can't win. I can't let you do this. I have to, you don't understand. Like, if you win and Hades becomes the god, the king of the gods, like it's doom and gloom for all of us. So I can't allow this. You would think that we might get a cool like battle scene between Zeus and Hades. We don't. Hades shows up. He's like, don't move. My already struggling heart stutters. I know that voice. That sinful voice of darkness and soot. Hades, I'm in love with him. Persephone isn't dead, and I'm about to be, and I'm in love with Hades. What a stupid, horrible, God's awful time to figure that out. I force my eyes open, and even through the spots still trying to steal my vision, I can see Hades standing behind Zeus. He's dressed in his liquid armor, his bident in his hand, and the murder in his eyes as sharp as cut steel. How are you in love with this man? This man is awful. I don't like Hades. I would kick him in the face.
Okay, well, I deserve that.
Zeus and Hades don't even get a chance to fight because Hades sits there and says, "You've been cheating this entire time, Zeus. You're a bad guy."
What?
As he says this, one of the champions is like, "It's true." One of the champions there has the gift of to be able to tell if somebody's lying or not. Zeus is literally arrested. Oh yeah, before Hades shows up, Zeus managed to get some hit in on Lyra because she's like actually dying there. Zeus is arrested. Hades technically becomes king of the gods.
Yes, Hades rule!
Then Lyra dies. Then Hades is like, "No, I can't allow this." So then he makes Lyra queen of the underworld. So then Lyra wakes up. She is queen of the underworld. Boone has been made into a god. He's basically, it's really weird. He basically like took Hermes' power away from him. So that happened. Which, I mean, I'm glad that Boone's alive because that means he'll at least be in the second book. And he's honestly the only character worth giving a crap about in this whole book. Hades is now the king of the gods. He and Lyra, they get the Pandora's box, and they have to use Pandora's box to open up Tartarus and to get Persephone out. But you can only use Pandora's box once. So they go down, and the last like 10 pages of the book, it's like Lyra learning how to run the underworld and blah, 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 blah. Like it's so much stuff all at once. I'm like, what the frick is going on here? Lyra and Boone and Hades go down to Tartarus and they have Pandora's box, and somehow the box opens the door, or something happens where the door opens enough and Boone and Lyra get sucked through the hole, and like the door closes again, and so they're on the other side of the door and they see Kronos, and I'm like, oh cool, that's great. And then Hades is locked out on the other side and he's mad. He's like, oh my gosh, my queen has been taken from me. That's where the book ends.
Any questions? I think they got it.
I do not like Lyra and Hades being together. I don't think they fit well at all. They're instantly lusting after one another for no reason other than the fact that they just think they're cute, I guess, or attractive. There's really no bonding. There's no bonding time with them. There's no scenes where they really get to like work through much together. Boone and Lyra have the scenes where they bond and like they are comfortable with one another, and I really liked reading that. A part of me wondered if like when Hades gave her the seal, his seal, in order for her to be able to get in and out of the underworld, I wondered if that broke her curse, because it describes like she can feel the power like flooding through her. And so I'm like, did that break the curse or something? Because even she made a note that said that Boone was paying more attention to her now than he ever had before. So I don't know. If the author was trying to insinuate that the curse was broken, or that the curse wasn't really a problem, it was just how Lyra interpreted things, I don't know. It wasn't written well. Oh, and one of the big reasons, like at the towards the end when everything is like on fire, Hades straight up admits to her, like, I had to put on this mean facade because I couldn't let you fall for me, because I had to protect you. So I was a jerk to you, but that's not really who I am. This part of this book, this is where I get the most angry, because if Hades didn't want to have Lyra fall in love with him, he should have set up boundaries, right? Like, so this is strictly platonic. This is a business type situation here. There are no lingering touches, lingering gazes, anything like that. There are none of that. There's no compliments or checking one out. And like, there needed to be boundaries put in place. Hades didn't put any boundaries in place. He just toyed around with her the whole book, got ticked off when Boone was there, and then like slept with her. And he's like, but I had to be a jerk because I didn't want you to fall for me. How about putting boundaries in place so she wouldn't think that you actually liked her and stop messing with her emotions? Get out of here. It's manipulative, and I hated it. You know, Hades being jealous of Boone doesn't make sense, because apparently Boone can't love her. So why does Hades give a rip? Why does he give a rip? Unless, you know, Lyra's curse wasn't real to begin with or something, and that's something that Hades knows, but the author never, ever, ever, ever hints at that. So I'm like, I can't tell if it was supposed to be, if it's supposed to be that her curse really didn't exist, and that's why Hades was jealous, because he knew that Boone really did care for her. I don't know. If that's the case, again, the author didn't write it well. Pretty much every single character in this book felt extremely hollow to me, except for Boone. There was one part where, like, when Lyra rescues Boone from the dream world, she's like, hey, where are we? Like, where are we right now? We're in this, like, weird cabin. He goes, oh, this is my cabin. I bought this cabin, and I come out here when I'm not working, and I stay out here. And I'm like, hey, that's cool. That's cool. We can dive into that. Like, how do you buy? So, because apparently Boone does tell Lyra that he actually paid off all of his debt and he's still a part of the order because, like, he's just such a gosh darn good thief that he can't give up his thieving ways, but he has paid everything off. And so he has this little cabin that he goes to in the woods. At least that's like some more depth to a character. It gives you more. So he's outdoorsy. He likes the tranquility of the wilderness, all that stuff. We get almost nothing else about Lyra or any of the other characters. They're so boring. They're so flat. They're so immature. Huge disappointment. Like, it could have been good. I don't know how this book ended up being this long. I'll tell you right now. Nothing really happens. There's no world building, really. There's nothing. It's just, oh my gosh, it's an absolute disappointment. Smooth like butter. So yeah, me and Butter here. It's not a good book. Read it if you want. I don't even think it's fun. The only part that I think about this book that's fun are the interactions between Boone and Lyra. I liked those. Legitimately, I could get behind those. Everything else, though, absolutely not. I really, really hate the romanticization that we see in some books of like abusive red flag behavior. Write better characters, okay? Stop romanticizing like the possessive bull crap. It can work in certain settings, but I absolutely hated how Hades was written. Hopefully the next review is a book that I actually enjoy. We'll see you all later. Thank you so much for watching, and love you all dearly. Toodles!